What's up everybody, my name is Jim Roswick, and today I want to walk you through some things that I learned building an MMO online. Now, I've actually never built a multiplayer game before. I've never built a multiplayer RPG, and I've definitely not built a multiplayer RPG that multiple people can work around. And the way that we did this was we kind of took Discord as a platform and we built multiple bots that acted as NPCs to kind of make this text-based RPG MMO thing. And building this stuff over the last couple weeks has been really interesting and really fun. I learned a lot. I learned a ton about improving the engagement rate of players. I learned a ton about balancing economies. I learned all sorts of things. So I'm going to share 5 things that I learned specifically that work with multiplayer games and balancing economies and that type of stuff with you right now. So real quick before we get started, I want to kind of explain the game a little bit so you understand the context behind some of the lessons, because they may or may not apply to your game. It just depends on, you know, the similarity between our games. So let's get started. Okay, so this entire game takes place on a Discord server. And when you join the Discord server, the first thing you're greeted with is this message from the main bot here that makes you pick a faction. And there are 3 factions to choose from. They all have different beliefs depending on what they believe on the Codex. The Codex is a book of secrets that tells what all the players in the game are doing. When you pick a faction, you get booted from this section and you end up in one of your respective faction rooms. There's 2 rooms per faction plus a voice channel. The main room is for discussion, and then there's a bot spam channel, which is where you can check your stats. So if you type stats, for example, you end up with all kinds of information. You have strength, speed, stamina, health. You have materials that you've scavenged for. You have upgrade skill points. You have loot boxes. Yay, loot boxes. Everybody likes loot boxes. And then you have crystals, which are the type of currency. So if you notice, I just got a message because I leveled up with that action, and I just got an extra nanotech canister, which will allow me to upgrade one of these stats here. So it's a kind of RPG in that sense. And then the basic game consists of going and doing activities. Right now, there's the one. We have more that we're working on, but basically a couple times an hour, this Ravager comes along. He'll announce himself. He's got a certain amount of stats, and then people can attack him and gain XP and earn crystals by fighting him. And the distribution is based on the percentage and all that stuff. So now that we have that out of the way, and there's different activities, right? There's outskirts where you can scavenge for stuff. I have more activities in here that I'm not going to share currently because they're not finished. But the basic gameplay loop consists of killing enemies, scavenging for materials, leveling up your character, and then depositing your crystals into your bank. So if you use the word deposit, I'll just show you in help. Deposit allows you to deposit into your bank, and then the faction with the most crystals in their bank at the end of the week gains access to the Codex right here. And the Codex has data on what every single player is doing in the game. Everything that they do is stored in the Codex. So it gives you a major advantage. Now, with this game, this is obviously a little bit different than most games out there. As far as I'm aware, there's never been a game built on Discord platform, so it was kind of new territory there. But at the same time, this is pretty much just an RPG. This is a text-based RPG. People have compared it to old MUDs that they used to play online. I've never played a MUD, but I've heard it compared to that. So one of the first lessons that I learned very early on, very early on, was the fact that if you create something that is exploitable, players will exploit the shit out of it. Very early on when we developed the Outskirts, we actually did this live on stream. And one of the things that I saw, let me see if I can pull this up for you so we can kind of show. No, I won't go that far back. But basically, I created a system where people could scavenge for materials and then they could sell the materials immediately. And the price for selling the materials was not balanced with the price for earning the materials. So immediately what I witnessed on stream was over and over and over again, people just doing it and selling it, scavenging and selling, scavenging and selling, scavenging and selling. And it kept going on over and over and over again. And they would not stop. And they kept going, and everybody jumped into it, and it got crazy, and they kept going. And I had to shut it down because it was ridiculous. It was an exploit in the economy that allowed you to basically just do an action and turn 3 crystals into 10 crystals. And so when you did that, it basically it broke everything. And I had made the assumption before that people would report things like that. We have a bug report section, and I assumed that when I created something that was that broken, people would report it. But no, they wanted their advantages. They wanted their 100% advantages, and they just kept doing it over and over again. So learning that exploits will immediately happen was a big lesson for me. Another lesson that I learned early on was that updating a live game is not a process to be taken lightly. So I have all of these bots here. They all do different things. There's different ones that come online at different times, and I've been tasked with the task of updating them, keeping them updated. And we have an entire devlog here of all the stuff that I've been doing over the past couple weeks. And every time I update something, like I have to update a bot, right? Which means I have to upload one of these guys to the server. And there's downtime of about 60 to 120 seconds, maybe 1 to 2 minutes. There's downtime where the bots are down, they don't respond. And when people mention this and they click on their bot spam and they try and do something for that requires that bot and it doesn't respond, immediately they post a bug report and they complain about it. That was eye-opening too. Like, I had just assumed that people would, I don't know why I did, but I just kind of assumed that people would understand that fact and, like, you know, just give it a minute or two or try it again. But people don't understand. They try something and it doesn't work and they think it's broken immediately. So that was a big lesson for me too, especially with the live game, how just quickly people can just turn on it when something doesn't work. Which leads me to the next thing that I learned was that people get really, really, really frustrated if something doesn't work. And this is Ray just showed up. She's the bot that allows you to scavenge stuff. People get super frustrated when something doesn't work. And there was a couple times where I actually had to moderate people based on the things that happened, because they were just getting frustrated and saying the game was stupid and just being very rude and mean to people. And I had to call people out a couple times because it was just kind of getting ridiculous. And that's something I never really experienced with the Game Dev Underground community, because, you know, they weren't super passionate about a game. They were passionate about the community and creating games. So actually having created a game that people are interested in and play daily, sometimes it gets really frustrating for them when something doesn't work. And so it was kind of a wake-up call for me to do that and just watch people just a little bit of the toxicity of the gamer culture kind of crept in. So right now there's a Ravager going on. People are attacking him. He's a big one though. He hits really big, so I think people are going to hold off, which is interesting. So then another thing that I learned was building this little pub type of area, and it's got a bartender, Alexis, and the lesson here, number 4, is that people like novelty. I was really, really surprised. I was like, why would I ever build a bartender and a place to hang out when, like, that's like the most pointless of all the bots? It doesn't really do anything. You can buy drinks from her. When you say certain words, she quips at you. If you say, like, you ask her to date you, she'll, like, reject you. Like, she'll randomly heart when you say her name. Little things like that. And people love it so much. They have, like, been in this place nonstop, and they buy drinks all the time. And the drinks literally don't do anything. They just cost crystals. And people do it all the time. And they love talking to Alexis. When you say hey, she says hey back. If I say hey, it says Lexus is typing, and then she'll say hey to me. And little things like that. It's stupid. She's not real. She's a bot. I programmed all these lines in myself, but people have a ton of fun with it. They buy drinks all the time. They waste their crystals all the time, and it's really interesting to watch. So that was a big wake up call for me. And the fifth and final little thing here was that players are smart. I learned that the hard way. Now, I'm not saying that I thought that players were dumb before, but I'm saying that, like, in situations like this, right? This guy does a lot of damage. The average HP for a player is maybe between 100 and 120. So 17 damage is like a fifth or a sixth of your entire health. People are smart, and they balance the damage that's being done with, well, some people do. Sorry, Refraction. He just went at it. He didn't care. He was just going to go at it. But they balance the risk and reward, right? They're constantly calculating in their head, is this worth it? They don't just go and attack the enemy every time he shows up. Some people do. But a lot of people calculate, hey, if I hit this guy, I'm going to do this much damage. It's going to cost me this much to heal from Mori. And then the crystals that I get from him are going to be less than the crystals that I earn. That was really interesting that to me, that people would calculate all this different stuff, and they would do all this stuff in their heads, and an economy would merge of sorts that it would not be worth it to do certain actions, and people would stop doing certain actions when they realized that the result was net negative. And they would keep doing actions when the result were net positive. And that was really interesting to me. It made me really want to balance and get this part right. And the stats for these guys are randomized. And I've noticed that certain stats for certain dudes, everybody jumps in attacks. And certain stats, people are just like, nope, I'm not going to touch it. And that was really interesting. And so that's why we actually built this flee system, because if you didn't want to fight a big dude, which a lot of people didn't, it would flee and it would run away. And when it does, this guy was level 10. The levels go back down to 1, and then for each enemy that you kill, the next one is a higher level. So we kind of built that system based around people wanting to attack certain ones. And we're actually going to modify a little bit more too. Rather than go back to level 1, it's just going to go minus a level so that people can kind of stay around the levels that they want to attack. And it kind of balances out the people that are in there. So these were really interesting lessons that I learned from a game dev perspective. You have a bunch of people scavenging now. And I would totally, like, if this wasn't so much work, I would recommend that everybody do this. But this has been like 4 weeks of my life building this whole thing and doing all this stuff. And as you can see, like, every day we have multiple updates per day. And it's just been insane adding all this with a live player base, and the player base has been growing every single day without any marketing. So it's been really fun to watch that, and it's been really complicated to kind of balance all this, but I'm learning a ton of stuff about multiplayer economies. And if you want to make a multiplayer game, I would highly recommend that you start with one that maybe is on the easier side. Like, for this whole game doesn't have any front end UI. Right? It's all text-based, so I don't have to do any models, and I have to do minor little images and stuff for emotes, but like, no, I don't have to do a menu system, I don't have to do music, I don't have to do any of that. I could just kind of build the text-based thing, so it was really actually easier than building out a whole game for me. So that was really interesting. It was really fun to do. I learned a lot, and I recommend that if you are looking to do a multiplayer game, you start with something maybe smaller scope, that you can learn stuff like this. It's hard to get a player base like this. I know I have a huge advantage because I have a community that I'm very, very thankful for, but it has been a major learning experience. And if you've done a multiplayer game before, I want you to leave me a comment down below. I want you to let me know what you learned and your lessons, because I would love to hear them. But until next time, my name is Tim Roswick, and I'll see you again next week.